Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for August 30th, 2025. On today's discussion, we are starting off in the Eastern Pacific Basin because, again, that's where most of the activity has been and will be for at least the next week. In the tropics here, there are two areas of interest. Both of them have a high chance of development, with one of them being Invest 93E, and this is pretty much on the verge of developing into a tropical cyclone, and I'll show you the satellite imagery for it in a little bit. And then we have another area back to the east here, right just off the coast of Mexico, and this is also likely to develop. And in fact, I would not be surprised if this gets designated another invest here in the Pacific. And this is going to move to the west-northwest, and this will move pretty closely to the coast of Mexico. So we'll see if this brings any impacts, but it's more than likely going to stay offshore. And then we have our area of interest here in the Atlantic, and this is something that could potentially develop. And models are slowly coming on to the idea that something might form. Probably will not be a super strong storm, but both the GFS and the Euro are now on board with showing some sort of development out of this, and I'll show you those models in a little bit. But let's start off with a satellite image here of the Pacific. We have obviously quite a bit of convective activity, and as I've said before, and I've been talking about this for quite a few days, this is all part of a more broader scale favorable pattern that is setting into the Pacific, the MJO, which is allowing for the activity we have right now. And you can see we have 93E here. We also have the energy with our other area of interest that's going to stay just off the coast of Mexico, but will probably be very close. And of course, let's zoom in here on 93E. And it looks pretty well this afternoon. You can see there's definitely a low-level center, and it's producing quite a bit of convection, so this is probably just hours away from developing into a tropical cyclone. And this is going to move off to the northwest and west-northwest. This is going to stay well out to sea in the Pacific. And let me actually see what the intensity guidance is on 93E. Because I know yesterday a lot of the models had this becoming a hurricane, and as of today, there's still actually a pretty decent amount of spread on the intensity. Some models a little bit on the lower end, and I can even see the H-Wharf here, not really indicating much strengthening of this storm. But then on the other hand, there's another envelope of models that actually intensify this pretty decently over the next few days to next week. And actually, the HMON and the HAFS model actually bring this to major hurricane intensity. So this might be an interesting storm that we're going to need to watch, 93E. And the actual latest intensity on the Invest, it is 25 knots and 1,009 millibars right now in the Pacific. And I'll really quickly show you the track for this. Again, it's going to stay well out to sea. It's not in Mexico. You can't even see any sort of coastline here on this graph. So in terms of actual impacts to land, won't have to worry about it with 93E, but probably on its way to becoming another named storm here in the Pacific. And beyond 93E, there's probably another one or two storms that'll probably happen in the next week. In the Atlantic, on the other hand, there's not much going on, except we do have to watch the Eastern Atlantic, and you could already see the tropical wave that is probably the catalyst for what we need to watch, beginning to move off the coast of Africa, probably going to splash down officially in the Atlantic Ocean tomorrow. And then over the next week, we're going to have to watch and see what kind of development occurs here in the Atlantic. But so far, nothing much right now. A lot of convective activity here, lots of energy off the East Coast, and this is associated with a front that's been moving off the East Coast. And we've had quite a bit of frontal activity occur here off the East Coast this month, especially since Aaron. And it's probably going to stay that way for a little bit while longer. And obviously that's a good thing, that if we have a trough that remains off the East Coast, the ridge will probably remain stronger more in the Eastern Atlantic, and then if anything tries to develop as it gets closer towards the Western Atlantic, um, it'll probably be able to find a way out to sea. But obviously we cannot, necessarily be hopeful too much that this pattern will last much longer. Although there are indications, I think, that as we head into next month, we will still kind of have a ridging pattern in the general eastern half of the U.S., or troughing pattern, I should say, ridging pattern. If that were the case, then we would have a really strong ridge, and that would probably be a pretty big issue for impacts as we head into next month with hurricane season, which we're probably going to get impacts either way. I mean, it's almost guaranteed. It happens pretty much every single season, especially over the last 2 years. But we'll see how the pressure pattern shapes up here over the next 2 weeks in the Atlantic. But for now, nothing much happening in terms of immediate activity. But again, taking a look at the sea surface temperature anomaly pattern, I would expect that to definitely change. We have a lot of very warm sea surface temperature anomalies here throughout the Atlantic, and especially very warm here off the west coast of Africa, and that extends pretty much through virtually the entire deep tropics out here in the Atlantic, all the way from the west coast of Africa into the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. And there's pretty much not going to be any cooling, or much in the way of cooling at all, over the next few weeks. We are still in the height of summer. We still have the sun rays blaring down and helping keeping things nice and warm. So I don't really see a reason as to why anything will cool down here in the Atlantic. And we are now at the last few days of August, and we are about to enter the month of September. And as I've said before, even if things are not quiet now, this pattern really has the look of a ticking time bomb that is just only a matter of time before conditions atmospherically become favorable in the Atlantic. And once that happens, we will probably see things really begin to explode here. And in fact, just taking a look at the wind shear values right now, pretty favorable. I mean, there is, I think, some sort of Tutton here, or tropical upper tropospheric trough, pretty much some sort of kink in the jet stream that does cause wind shear here, and it looks like that's the case right now in the Caribbean. But in the MDR, look at that. We have very low shear values for pretty much almost the entirety of the eastern and central MDR, right where we need to watch over the next week or so, as that's where probably the most amount of development is going to occur. And I'm going to bring you to the models now. Here's the GFS as of the 12Z run, and I'll take you out over the next week here, and you could see we have our tropical wave that emerges in the eastern Atlantic. And the GFS actually now shows some consolidation. There's some sort of surface low that develops here, as you can see by these isobars that are actually closed and rounded off. And looks like, especially as we head into next week, something tries to get going. But I guess as it heads further west, as I mentioned before, there is a little bit of shear. Maybe there's also some dry air that this might deal with as it heads further west. The atmosphere is still not fully ready yet for things to pop off. But again, I said it's probably the beginning. It's only the beginning that we already have something here trying to consolidate in the eastern Atlantic. And then, curiously enough, want to backtrack a little bit. There is actually an interesting low here that develops off the East Coast, and I mentioned a few days ago that the models had some sort of signal because of all this East Coast energy, that the models a few days ago had something of some sort of low pressure try to develop and I guess become some sort of hybrid system. And I think some of the ensembles of, I think, the Euro and some other models still show quite a bit of stuff here off the East Coast. I mean, in general, because we're going to have a lot of energy and just stuff associated with the front here, but the GFS actually shows something that tries to consolidate. So we'll see if that happens. And then finally, with the 12Z Euro, I do want to show you, and I'll just take this out in time here over the next week. And you can see something else also tries to get going here as well. And I actually want to take you a little bit further out than just a week because this is something interesting that I saw that the Euro does, and it does this on both the 12Z run, which is the current run, and the 0Z run from overnight, where it develops this initially in the MDR next week, and then it kind of, disintegrates a little bit, but kind of remains a piece of energy. And then, especially as we head beyond the next week, and this is getting into the 10-day time frame, the Euro actually, for some reason, consolidates this further in the Western Atlantic. So we'll have to see if that is something that we'll need to watch. Again, I said conditions are becoming favorable, and I mean just look at the Western Atlantic, especially in the Caribbean and Gulf. Things are very warm, and again, we're heading into the month of September, so lots of things can happen. And again, I'm just saying, the Atlantic is dead now, but it's probably gonna wake up very shortly. And we're already seeing the signs of that with this area of interest in the Eastern Atlantic. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, share this video with family and friends too. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening and your weekend. Although we will have another video tomorrow, so I hope to see you then. Until then, have a great rest of your day.